My coworker told our boss I was stealing office supplies. I was written up without proof. When I asked her why, she said, "You smile too much. It's creepy." So I stopped smiling and started collecting emails, messages, voicemails. I've just shared the folder with HR under the title Pattern of Obsession. And what's coming next will make her wish she'd never said. I've always been the kind of person who tries to stay on the good side of people. Not out of fear, just habit. I learned early in life that it's safer to be quiet, polite, and agreeable, especially around people who seem unstable. That's probably why I didn't push back at first. I just wanted peace. But the thing about peace is, it doesn't work when the other person is already at war with you. I started that job about 2 years ago. Medium-sized company. I was hired as a project coordinator, nothing fancy, just mid-level office work. Organizing files, scheduling meetings, keeping teams on track. It was work I was good at. Quiet work. Clean, structured. I liked it. The first few weeks were okay. Everyone was friendly enough. I kept to myself, tried to be helpful. I brought in donuts once or twice, made small talk, asked people how their weekends were. And for a while, it felt like I was fitting in. Her name was Amy. She worked on the same floor as me. Not in the same department, technically, but we overlapped a lot. She was always around, always watching. She wasn't my manager, but she acted like she was above me. And I noticed pretty early on that she didn't like me. It started small. If I said something in a meeting, she'd immediately reword it and say it louder. If I shared a suggestion, she'd cut in with a better one right after. A couple times, I noticed she didn't include me on project emails I was clearly supposed to be part of. I thought maybe it was just a mistake, but it kept happening. The first real red flag was the smile comment. It was early one morning before most people were in. I had brought donuts again. I offered her one. She looked at me, right in the eye, and said, "You smile too much. It's creepy." That was it. No smile back. No joke. Just flat. I remember feeling confused. Not hurt exactly, just weirdly exposed. Like she saw something in me and didn't like it. I didn't respond. I just went back to my desk and stayed quiet for the rest of the day. After that, she got more bold. She'd come up behind me at my desk and ask why I was typing so loud. She told another coworker I was overly eager and trying too hard. I only heard about that secondhand, but it fit. She made me feel like everything I did was too much. Too friendly. Too cheerful. Like my existence offended her. Then came the accusation. My manager called me in. Told me someone had reported that I was taking home office supplies. He said it like it wasn't a big deal. Just some paper, pens, folders. He acted uncomfortable about it, which made it worse. Said he had to give me a write-up, just to be safe. There was no investigation. No one checked my desk. No one asked to see anything. They just assumed it was true. I asked who said it. He wouldn't tell me. Said it was confidential. But I knew. I knew. I walked past her desk that afternoon, and I saw her glance at me, just for a second. She didn't smile, but there was something smug in her face. Like she'd won a round in a game I hadn't even known we were playing. I felt so humiliated. Not even because of the write-up itself, but because nobody asked me for the truth. Nobody gave me a chance to speak. I went home that night and sat in my car for a full hour before going inside. I felt stupid. Like maybe I really had been too eager, too friendly, too trusting. So I decided to stop. No more smiling. No more small talk. I kept my head down and did my work. I stopped offering to help people. I stayed off Slack as much as I could. I didn't bring donuts anymore. And I started keeping records. I made a folder on my personal Google Drive and named it Pattern of Obsession. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it, but I knew I needed a place to collect the truth. At first, it was just a few notes, dates, times, and weird things she'd say or do. Like when she told me not to join a team meeting, then later told everyone I didn't show up. I documented that. Or the time she edited one of my files and deleted the work I'd done, then told the team I never submitted it. I found the original timestamp in the drive, and I saved screenshots of both versions. I made sure to keep everything off company computers. The collection grew fast. I started noticing how often she changed things in our shared files, or left me off group emails, or told people I'd missed deadlines that she'd moved without telling me. She was careful, but not that careful. And then there were the messages. She would Slack me things like, "You might want to work on your tone," or "I'm not sure why you're always so cheerful. Some of us are trying to focus." I saved all of it. Every passive-aggressive comment. Every manipulative little dig. One time, she sent me a voicemail after hours, saying she was disappointed in how I'd handled a meeting and that I should reflect on how my personality affects team dynamics. She said it like she was my therapist, like I was broken. I played that voicemail 3 times. Then I saved it to the folder. By the end of the first year, I had over 50 files saved. Emails, screenshots, recordings, notes. Some were small, some were big, but all of them showed a clear pattern. She was trying to ruin my reputation. Quietly, carefully, and nobody else could see it. Until the second write-up. That one hit harder. My manager said I'd been creating tension. Said he'd received several complaints about my attitude. Again, no details, no proof, no names. Just a formal write-up and a quiet warning to get along better. There were no several complaints. There was only her. I sat in my car that night, shaking. I remember thinking, this is how people get pushed out. They get written up until they quit. Until their file looks messy enough to justify firing them. And then I thought, no, I'm not going out like that. That night, I finished organizing everything. I added dates, summaries, context. I created a table of contents. I renamed the folder. Pattern of obsession. 18 months of targeted harassment, psychological manipulation, and workplace sabotage. Then I requested a formal meeting with HR. I didn't just tell them my story. I showed it to them. I walked them through every screenshot, every voicemail, every Slack thread. The HR woman kept asking, "How long have you been documenting this?" I told her, "Since the first write-up." She asked me, "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" I said, "Because you wrote me up without asking for proof." She didn't say anything after that. And I wasn't done. Because HR was only the first layer. I had more. And what came next was just getting started. After I gave HR the folder, things moved slowly. Too slowly. At first, they seemed shocked. They said they'd open an internal review, told me they took this seriously, and that they'd follow up soon. But weeks passed. Then a full month. Nothing changed. Amy still acted like nothing had happened. Still smiled her fake smile in meetings. Still spoke over me. Still left me off threads and changed file permissions. I watched her sit in the same meetings, answer questions about team health, and talk about collaboration like she hadn't been trying to crush me for over a year. That's when I realized HR wasn't going to fix it. They might investigate, maybe even warn her. But this wasn't going to go away on its own. Not with how careful she was. Not unless I pushed. So I kept documenting. But now I got more methodical. I bought a small legal pocket recorder. Not for private conversations, just to record meetings where she'd talk over me, twist my words, or interrupt. I double-checked company policy first. In our state, it was allowed in the workplace if one party consented. I consented. The first meeting I recorded, she took credit for a project I had done almost entirely alone. I had all the Google Drive edit history. I clipped that part and added it to a new folder. Follow-up evidence, post-HR submission. Then came the performance review cycle. That's when things started breaking open. I was expecting the worst. With 2 write-ups on file, I figured they'd mark me low across the board. But my direct manager, who I'd always gotten along with, actually gave me decent marks. Not glowing, but fair. What shocked me was the optional comments section. Under team collaboration, he wrote, "There have been concerns raised by a peer, but I have not seen evidence of these concerns. It appears to be isolated to a single individual and may warrant further internal attention." That was the first time someone else hinted they knew. Then something strange happened. Another coworker, Nina, from another department, messaged me privately. Said she wanted to talk. We met in the break room, both pretending it was casual. She leaned in and said quietly, "Has Amy ever done this to anyone else?" I asked what she meant. She said Amy had started making comments about her too. Subtle at first, criticizing her tone, implying she was forgetful. Nina said Amy once told her during a coffee break, "You should be careful with how loud you laugh. It's distracting." I just nodded. I didn't want to pull her into it too deep, but I asked if she'd be willing to write that down. She said yes. She did. HR hadn't acted on my report yet, but now I had backup. Someone else. A second voice. Around the same time, I noticed Amy starting to unravel just a little. She'd leave her desk more often, get flustered in meetings. At one point, she started CCing our boss on random emails between her and me, trying to show that I wasn't following instructions. But the emails didn't say that at all. They were just normal. If anything, they made her look paranoid. Then she crossed a line. She made a comment about my mental health. In front of two other people. We were in a small team check-in. She interrupted me, again, while I was talking. I stayed calm. Didn't react. Just continued after she finished. A few minutes later, she laughed and said, "You know, it's kind of impressive how robotic you are lately. Did someone finally put you on meds or something?" Silence. No one laughed. My manager looked stunned. Another team member looked down. I didn't say anything. I didn't even look at her. But that night, I filed a formal harassment report. Again. This time, I had two people in the meeting who could confirm what she said. I submitted the recording too. That changed everything. HR called me in the next day. They looked tense. Serious. They told me she had been temporarily suspended pending a full investigation. That they would be reviewing all past reports, including mine. They asked if I had anything else I hadn't submitted. I did. That's when I handed over the second folder. The follow-up evidence. Labeled, time-stamped, indexed. I also gave them Nina's written statement, along with permission for HR to contact her. Within a week, 3 other coworkers reached out to me privately. All women. All saying the same thing. She did that to me too. One had left the company 6 months earlier. Said she'd quit because of Amy, but didn't want to make trouble at the time. Another said Amy had called her too sensitive during a review. The third said she'd been written up after Amy misunderstood something she said in a meeting. That's when I realized it wasn't personal. It wasn't about me smiling too much. It was about control. She had been doing this for years, targeting people she saw as weak, chipping away at them slowly, quietly, until they either quit, broke down, or got pushed out. I just happened to be the first one who kept records. HR opened a broader investigation, started interviewing people. I wasn't told the details, but I could tell from the way people acted in the office. From how quiet Amy's desk became. From how HR suddenly held a culture workshop no one had asked for. And then I found something new. Something hidden. While cleaning out an old shared drive folder, I found a spreadsheet buried in a subfolder. It was named Team Metrics Draft. But inside it were notes. Personal ones. About coworkers. Including me. Under my name, it said, "Smiles too much. Probably masking something. Watch for signs of instability." She had written it. The metadata showed her as the creator. And that document was shared with our boss. That was the final nail. I printed it, screenshotted the metadata, and I added it to a new section in the folder. Final phase. What came next was going to destroy her. But she earned it. Every step of the way. The Team Metrics file broke something open. Up until that point, everything I had was either passive-aggressive or manipulative, but still arguable. She could claim I misunderstood, or misread tone, or was just sensitive. But that document was something else. It showed intent. It proved she'd been collecting thoughts about me, about others, with the clear purpose of targeting us. She wasn't making quick comments or emotional mistakes. She was writing things down, strategizing, looking for weakness. And she had shared it with our boss. That's when I started to wonder, how deep did this go? So I went looking. I requested, under company policy, to review any formal documentation on my file, including complaints made against me. I framed it carefully, said I needed clarification to improve my performance. HR hesitated, but I pushed. And after some back and forth, they let me view redacted versions. What I found made me physically sick. All the complaints, the ones that had led to my write-ups, were worded the same way. Same phrases, same tone, same structure. It didn't sound like different coworkers. It sounded like one person writing as several. Seems emotionally unstable. Makes others uncomfortable with excessive smiling. Possibly inappropriate attachment to team approval. Inappropriate attachment? Who even writes like that? Then I saw a note in the metadata of one form. A mistake. One of the digital reports still had the editing history saved. Her name was there. She had written the complaints herself. She used anonymous submission tools our company had set up to protect employees and filed multiple reports, pretending to be different people. That's how I got written up. She made me look unstable by flooding HR with false flags. And they just believed her. Never checked. Never verified. I took screenshots of everything. Every edit trail. Every submission ID. I added them to the folder. Reorganized it again. I made it cleaner. Tighter. Named each part. Phase 1, targeting Phase 2, sabotage Phase 3, psychological manipulation Phase 4, digital evidence of fraudulent complaints, each with documentation.
Receipts. Timeline.
Context.
But there was something else eating at me.
Something I hadn't thought about until then. Why did my boss never question it? He's not an idiot. He'd worked with me for over a year. Saw me every day. Saw how I handled work, how I kept quiet and consistent even when I was being pushed. Even if he believed the first complaint, why didn't he ever stop and ask for proof after that? So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I asked IT. There's a guy in IT, Darius. We're not close friends, but we eat lunch at the same time. He's quiet, smart, keeps to himself. I waited until we were alone. I didn't ask him to do anything shady. I just asked one question. Hey, can internal reports be edited after they're filed? He paused. Said, only admins. HR or management. That's when it hit me. What if my boss didn't just believe the complaints? What if he helped shape them? I didn't know how to prove it, but the idea stuck in my head. Would explain why he never challenged Amy. Why he accepted those vague write-ups. Why he avoided eye contact during meetings when things got tense. I dug through old emails. One caught my eye. An email from Amy to my manager, forwarded by accident to me months ago. Subject line. Concerns about my name? The email was short. Just said, we might want to build a case slowly. Let her show patterns. I'll keep documenting. Build a case. Let her show patterns. I had forgotten about it until now. But it was there. A warning in plain sight. My boss never reported her. Because he was in on it. Maybe not from the start. Maybe she pulled him in later. But he was part of it. He helped. Or, at the very least, he protected her while she lied about me. I added that email to the folder too. Now, it wasn't just a harassment file. It was a coordinated pattern of abuse. 2 people. One acting, one enabling. That changed everything. HR finally contacted me again. They said they had concluded their internal investigation and that appropriate measures were being taken. But they were vague. Too vague. I asked directly, is Amy still employed? They wouldn't answer. So, I checked the staff directory. She was still listed. Still in her role. Still at her desk 2 days later, when I passed by to use the printer. She looked nervous now. Glanced up, didn't smile, didn't speak. But she was still there. After everything I gave them, she was still there. And my manager? Still running meetings like nothing had happened. Still asking me for status updates. Still CCNG me like we were just coworkers. That's when I stopped waiting for HR. I took the folder, now over 150 pages, and I uploaded it to a new location. Not public. Not yet. But shared. shared with someone outside the company, someone who was willing to look deeper. And what they found changed everything. I sent the folder to a lawyer. Not mine. I didn't have one. But I had a friend, Jason, from college who'd gone into employment law. We weren't close anymore, but we still followed each other online. I'd seen him post once about workplace harassment cases and how few people document them well. I messaged him out of the blue. I told him I had something he might want to see. I didn't even name names. Just shared the file. A week later, he called me. Said, "If even half of this is accurate, your company is sitting on a bomb." That was the first time I felt something close to real relief. Not joy. Not revenge. Just relief that someone saw it.
Really saw it.
All of it. Jason wasn't interested in dragging things out. He told me he'd send a letter. Polite, professional, but clear. A formal request for internal review with legal oversight. Basically, a way of saying, "We know what you've been ignoring. You have one last chance to fix it quietly." The letter went out. And suddenly, things at work changed fast. HR asked to meet again. This time, there were two people in the room. One of them was from corporate. They looked stiff, careful with their words. Asked me to reconfirm details of the documents submitted. Asked if I stood by all aspects of the timeline. I said yes. No apology. No explanation. Just a shift in tone. Later that week, Amy was out sick. The week after that, her name was gone from the staff directory. No announcement. No goodbye email.
Just gone.
My manager didn't say a word about it. Kept acting normal. But I noticed he stopped calling on me in meetings. Stopped replying to my messages. Stopped speaking to me unless someone else was in the room. I think he thought I was done. He was wrong. Because while I had been gathering evidence of Amy's behavior, I'd also been building a quiet case on him. The enabling, the indifference, the complicity, the signed write-ups based on false claims, the digital fingerprints he left behind. I sent that part to Jason next. He said, "This goes beyond harassment. It's negligence. Could be defamation. Could be retaliation. Could be enough." And then he asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Do you want to sue them or destroy them?" I said, "Both." So he drafted a new letter, one that included everything. The false write-ups, the ignored complaints, the tampering with employee reports, the shared file Amy created and sent to my boss, the audio recordings, the multiple women who had come forward after me, the evidence that both HR and my manager looked the other way until legal got involved. He gave them two options. Option 1, private mediation, financial settlement, signed apologies, purge of disciplinary record, termination of involved parties, NDA with terms I would set, option 2, a lawsuit, with exhibits, with named witnesses, with a complete breakdown of how their internal systems allowed this to continue, even after multiple reports, with damages sought.
Public.
They chose option 1.
Fast.
But the terms I gave weren't small. I wanted money.
Yes.
But I also wanted an apology.
Written.
Signed by both HR and my former manager. I wanted the write-up scrubbed, formally reversed in the system, with letters placed in my file saying the claims were false and motivated by malicious personal targeting. I wanted Amy's name listed in the HR system as terminated due to verified misconduct. And I wanted my former manager's resignation. They said that part would be challenging. I told them it wasn't negotiable. 3 weeks later, he was gone too. They called it a personal decision to step away. But I had the resignation letter. I kept it. It said, in bland HR language, that he had failed to appropriately escalate a pattern of internal harassment. That he was accepting responsibility. I never spoke to either of them again. But it didn't end there. Because while all this was happening, someone else had been paying attention. The corporate HR director. She wasn't part of the original mess. She worked at headquarters. When the second legal letter went out, she requested to speak to me herself. She asked if I'd be willing to help them review their internal reporting system. Quietly, as a consultant.
Paid.
I said yes. Now, once a month, I sit in meetings where I walk through everything that went wrong, everything Amy did, everything the company ignored, and I help them fix it. Not because I care about them, because I want to make sure no one else gets buried the way I almost did. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more thing I had to do. Because, while my career was fine, Amy had already started applying for new jobs. And I had the power to make sure no one hired her again. After the settlement, I didn't tell anyone. Not my coworkers, not even my friends. The ones who knew I'd been struggling thought I'd just moved on. Maybe I had a little,
But not all the way.
I couldn't stop checking. Amy's LinkedIn, her old department's page, Google searches of her full name plus job title. She'd gone quiet. No updates. For a while, I thought maybe she disappeared. But a few months later, I found her. New city, new company, same industry. I stared at the profile for a long time. New headshot, new title, senior strategy lead. Like nothing had ever happened. Like she hadn't spent nearly 2 years trying to ruin me. She was starting fresh.
Clean.
And I wasn't okay with that. I still had the folder, still had the receipts, the documents, the audio, her old emails, the HR letter, the resignation notes. I had the settlement agreement in a locked file. I couldn't share that part, but the rest? That wasn't under NDA. And I knew how to use it. The company she joined was big, known for being progressive, careful about PR. Their careers page had a whole section on zero tolerance for harassment. They bragged about vetting leadership, about holding their managers to high standards. So I created a new folder, labeled it Prior Pattern of Workplace Misconduct, Amy, last name. I redacted my name, redacted the company name. I removed any personal info that could be traced back to me directly. But I left in the evidence. All of it. I even included a brief, factual statement at the top. This folder contains verified records of psychological harassment, manipulation, and targeted retaliation carried out by Amy, last name, at her previous workplace. This documentation was submitted to legal counsel and led to termination. Please vet accordingly. I sent it anonymously. Not to her company directly, but to the Director of People Operations, their internal ethics inbox, and 3 senior execs who had posted about leadership accountability on LinkedIn. I used a burner email, attached the files, sent it once, never replied. A month later, I checked her profile again.
Gone.
She didn't update anything. She just vanished. I waited another week. Then I checked the company site. New job posting, same title, same department. She'd been fired. No goodbye post. No explanation. Just wiped. I thought that would be enough. But 2 months later, I saw her pop up again, different company, smaller. I followed the same process. Sent the files. This time, I included 2 new statements from former coworkers who had agreed to let their words be shared anonymously. One of them called what Amy did emotional erosion. She was gone in 3 weeks. It kept happening. She'd get hired. Then she'd disappear. She tried to rebrand. Used a shortened version of her name. Changed her photo. Even left off some job history. But I always found her. Always had a way to confirm.
I didn't do it fast.
I didn't do it loud. I did it slow.
Just like she had done to me.
Over time, I stopped needing to check as much. I started sleeping better. I got promoted. I moved to a new place. My days got quiet again. But every once in a while, I'd get a message from someone I didn't know, saying, "Did she do this to you too?" And I'd just send back the folder. No words, just the truth. She said my smile was creepy. So I stopped smiling. And I made sure every lie she ever told followed her. Forever.